Hello, welcome back. Hope you had a good Christmas and wishing you a happy new year. So, what we got on the bench today is E36 BMW, and the plan was we had a race night last night. Obviously, it's just for fun, but I wanted to get this E36 to be able to compete with the Sierra Cosworths that we all run. So, I spent the last couple of days sort of changing a few bits, lowering it, and just trying to get it to fit lower on the chassis that it comes standard with. Now, I had trouble with this car, and I suppose I'd have less trouble as I gain more and more experience with doing what I'm doing. So the issue that I actually had is I'm in the belief that the body is twisted ever so slightly. So I tend to go about lowering a chassis. So as you can see, like, it's quite a bit different from Scalextric car. So what I had done is rear mounting points been removed. The front one's still in play at the moment, and I think it's ever so slightly touching its point. I might sand that down. I didn't want to remove it in case I needed it later on. I might trim it down because I can always shim it back up. The only thing is, when you start trimming these down, is unless they're level, it can make the car sit over to the left or over to the right slightly. So I mean, I have had as I say, had a small issue with this car as well. I think that the body, or the body's, like, you can see there's a little tiny bit of flex. It's marginal. It's marginal. But what it caused me to have an issue with was I was setting the car up from the rear. I was trying to get the ride height, which is the rear arches had the same gap. Had the same gap either side. I mean, that one, it isn't. The fact of the matter is, I couldn't do it because I come to the conclusion that no matter what I did, this front end here would always sit lower. So unfortunately, after shimming up the body to the floor and holding it in line central to the car, the chassis central to the body, I mounted my wooden sticks to then drill through the bottom of the chassis to get into the body to give me my new mounting points. I've done them, as I say, by worrying about the height of the rear, and in reality the front splitter is what causes all the problems when going around corners. So going forward, when I do a tune next time or lay a body on, excuse me, I'll worry about the lowest point of the car, generally the front of the car as well, because when you're taking photos, when you look at the car, you're looking from the front, generally speaking. Now, it will mean that because of this particular body, that this right hand side sits ever so slightly lower. But as I say, you're better off tuning the lowest part of the car, because that's going to touch the track first, and you just have to swallow it that body isn't perfect. And that's what I'm doing. I accept that nothing's perfect, and I'm happy with that, because it's not about that for me. It's just about revitalising a car and getting it out on track. I'll be honest with you, it did well. So that's a real load of waffle. As I say, we've worked the body, we've trimmed down the interior parts, I've shaved it down with a Dremel as much as I dare. I've also dremelled out the insides of these arches. All of these. I've actually done the old Swift slots trick where you try and scratch some of this down. I didn't do it on the bonnet, but I've done it on the roof, done it on the sides. Obviously that is thick there, but some of the guys we've raced with, I want a bit of structure to my body. So that was that. On the chassis side of it, you see, look, if you have one of these cars, you may see it's a bit different. Now, these shims, bits of foam, tape shims, they're all a result from where that front end wasn't sitting. Look, and you can see it actually. That's the problem I had. So, as I say, so I ended up shimming this out. Realistically, I started from the front, made sure the front was perfect, and then just swallowed that the rear didn't look as good. But I went from back to front, ended up having to chuck all these shims in because my stick was on. So never mind. So these had like returned flanges on these parts. They've all been shaved off. The sides of the chassis all been shaved down to clear the body, to give me some movement. Now when mounting your sticks, I'd leave all the shaving of the body till the end, because what that does, that enables the chassis to be central inside the body itself before gluing your sticks. Because end of the day, like I shaved my chassis, and then that gave me an issue of all this movement. If I hadn't have shaved the chassis until later, it would have been nice and snug. I'd have stuck my glues, my sticks down, and I knew it would have been in the more or less bang on the right place. Anyway, so shaved a return flange there, return flange there, return flange there, that side, that side. Obviously got the brass bushes. This axle, now some of you may or may not know this, but I just bought some, I think it's called silver steel 1/32 size, and it's ground down, I think it was to 2 thousandths, but 2.5 thousandths of a mil. So I thought I'd give it a go. The only issue is, when I got it, I ordered it in a 300 mil length. The postman bent some of it in the letter. So I've managed to salvage some out of it, and it's a smooth running axle. It runs well. The tyres I ended up getting, and wheels are the F50 or F40 wheels that you get in one of the tune-up kits. They normally come with a narrower set of fronts and a wider set of, well, usually come with them on the rear and a narrower set of fronts. So I wanted the look to be very similar to the rear tyre. So I got rid of the narrow tyre, which you normally find on the XR2s, and I've just stuck with the larger tyre. Then I've put the obligatory P6 19x10 compound on the rear. They fit straight over those wheels, good enough. I did sand the actual wheel itself. There was a tiny imperfection on each wheel. These wheels are really, really true. So really happy with that rear axle. What movement. So didn't glue the motor in last night. Actually had to replace this motor. It was a bit weak, and even still I'm not happy with this motor, and because the shaft isn't splined, not sure what I'm going to do. Might get a new motor, not sure. So as you can see, I've tried to keep all the weight over this front end of the car. Try to keep this tidy. It's never easy making this tidy. And I've gone for, obviously, if you can, sorry about the camera work, I'm rushing ahead just talking. So I've got some notches out there of the chassis to give me some extra clearance on my guide. And I'll just cut everything else around the front of the guide. Then I can put on my own guide cables, fire the cables in with an M2 grub screw. I do tin the very tips of the cores of these cables. Don't tin all the way up, just tin the very tip, and if there's a blob on it, get rid of the blob. There's my braids frayed out with a little bit of advice from Marty Ford, 2 lanes, slot car channel, nice one. And that little fraying at the back there is, yeah, that's really helped us out. We like to keep the braids fairly clean, put a little, I mean they did have a little bit of a curl on them going up. Sorry about the camera, I've not been paying that much attention. So this did have the old school fibre optic light setup, so that's gone. Made a little plastic shim, drilled that, popped the IR reader in, ID infrared reader in there. And that is another thing that I like to do. Again, this isn't perfect, and I'm showing you this isn't perfect so that just have a go. Doesn't matter. Eventually, you'll get it better and better and better. I mean, I'm a nightmare for it. So what I'm getting at is, if you look at these 2 grub screws that I've fitted to set the axle height, they're not actually in line. This one's sitting forward slightly more. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make a world of difference on a home circuit. The fact that you've put them in is the difference. So, as I say, drilled and grub screwed below the axle. Obviously sanded the edges of the tyres, on the tyre truer, so as I could get the clearance around the arch. And then on top, I mean, another way of doing this would be to glue I've just glued like cable tie across the top. Now you could glue a proper piece of plastic across the top there, and then put grub screws in the top, and I think that's what I'll do on the next one that I do. And then I've got full adjustment on the axle, because what I've got at the moment is the axle lifts up ever so slightly too much. Another way round it is you could shim up the axle with some tape, rest the cable tie on, because what happens is the cable tie, if you see in there, can droop ever so slightly. So if you set that droop, you can also set your height with your cable tie on the front axle. Very difficult to do, but as I say, grub screwed up, sanded the edge of the tyres just to give it that little bit extra. And that there, I think that's a 3.5mm shaft scale auto guide. Again, I was just buying guides because I didn't really know what fit, what didn't. I just bought a load of stuff. It's alright. It's not perfect. A little bit of movement, and I haven't shaved it down. It is what it is. I just left it. It's good enough for me. It's basically where we're at now. As I say, my biggest issue was I didn't mount the body correctly in the first place. We ran the car last night. After putting it on the track, I didn't touch it. It ran. I didn't even clean the tyres, do anything, and it ran really well. I was over the moon with it, to be honest. But what I will do, so this interior is just in temporarily, because, as I said in previous video, I always like to tinker, and this isn't over. It's not over by a long shot. So I pull that out of there. Whoops. Also, shave the top of the glass. Probably could go more, but that was a little bit of weight. And initially I wasn't going to take this side mount off because I thought I can see it inside the car, but the closer I look, the older I get, the less I can see it. So it's going. It's a little bit of side weight up high that I don't really want. So that'll be today's job, and I'll more than likely give it a test run with it just taped back in, using the old electrical tape again. Just tape the cockpit in, see how it runs, And I might be even looking to either glue it in, or I'll use the tin foil tape. Lovely, thanks for watching. There will be more on this car, and I know I've rambled on an awful lot, so thanks for your time.